Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. So let's wait for 1 minute. Okay, then we'll start. So this is our last discussion with respect to May. Okay. After this lecture, before starting June, I will finish off the leftover portion of the May first part. Okay. So don't worry about it. So let's start. Okay. So the first news is about pandemic fund. Okay. So this pandemic fund is under World Bank. And what is the context of this pandemic fund? So after COVID-19 pandemic, so World Bank actually started this pandemic fund so that it can finance investments with respect to various countries' pandemic preparedness. And if any country want to actually prepare for further pandemics and respond to further pandemics, respond to future pandemics, in order to develop infrastructure with respect to these things, this pandemic fund was started. Okay. So the news actually is about India asks for 55 million funding in the first call with pandemic fund. So this pandemic fund, the corpus is about $1.66 billion. Okay. So the total amount, the total corpus of this pandemic fund is $1.66 billion. And in the first disbursement of funds from this pandemic fund is about 300 million. Okay. So the recently board has approved an envelope $300 million for its first round of funding. Okay, and within this $300 million, India is actually asking for $55 million. Okay, so I hope the context is clear. What is the total corpus, and within the first round, that is 300 million funding, India is actually asking about $55 million. Okay, so this is all about the first news with respect to pandemic fund. Next news is about the good data with respect to employment. So usually when we deal with employment, what type of data we actually want to see? So either we see in terms of government data, ESIC data, EPFO data, as well as periodic labor force data, and in private we see CMIE data. Okay. So these 3 or 4 metrics become important whenever we are trying to deal with the problem of employment as well as unemployment. So right now the news is about EPFO. So it says that new formal job creation at 4-year high. So that means in the month of, so it actually talks about the whole year, financial year 23. Okay. So in the financial year 23, the number of new subscribers that joined EPFO increased by 5.8%. Okay, and this is the total number is 4-year high. Okay, so it actually shows a steady recovery as fresh formal job creation is increasing after the various issues, be it with pandemic lockdown, be it with various global issues. Now the next news is about public sector banks profit sales past 1 trillion mark. So this year for public sector banks also, the year in terms of profit and revenue was a very good year. All profit public sector banks crossed, not all, collectively they've crossed 1 trillion mark profit. So tell me the number of public sector banks currently in India. How many banks are there? Rishabh says 12, Vishnu says 12, then who am I to, wrong that thing? So answer is 12, yes. That's why I actually removed this, because here the data was there. Okay. So it says that State Bank of India actually accounted for half of the total earnings. And what about the highest percentage of profit growth? So the Pune based Bank of Maharashtra actually accounted for 126% profit growth in FY23, and the absolute number is 2602. Okay. So you can remember the bank name which actually accounted for the highest profit growth. Then this scheme, again and again, every time we are discussing this scheme. Okay. So the FAME 2 subsidy is actually being reduced by the central government. Okay. And what corpus and by what percentage it is being reduced? Let's see that. So after June 1st, 23, the subsidy with respect to two-wheelers will be reduced. Okay, so for electric two-wheelers, the demand incentive will be rupees 10,000 per kilowatt hour. Okay, and the cap on incentives for electric two-wheeler will be 15%. It was initially used to be 40%. Okay, so after June 1st, 23, cap on incentives 15%, and the whole demand incentive will be 10,000. Okay, I hope you get this. Next thing is about the liberalized remittance scheme, under which $27.14 billion was received as a remittances in financial year 23, and it is 38% growth from the previous year. Okay, so this is what the news says, that Indians remitted this amount in 2023, and this was the last year's amount. So as you can literally see that around $9 billion was achieved more this year. Okay, then again this theme is coming again and again. So these things becomes important from the perspective of phase 2 examination especially. Okay, so prepare these topics and prepare schemes with related to green shipping effectively, because this is a core syllabus within RBI phase 2 examination. Okay, so what does the news says? Centre to finance 30% in green shipping projects. So it initially was 20%, as we've already seen in the previous sections or the previous news, that 20% centre was going to finance green shipping projects, but that limit has been increased to 30%. Okay. So for any green shipping project, center will finance the 30% of the cost. Okay. For green shipping, this will now be raised to 30% of the project cost to incentives, to incentivize the construction of vessels running on alternative fuels. And for this specifically, 241 crore has been used. The scheme operation period is 3 years only. The ministry also decided to accelerate its green tug transition program. This we've discussed in the April series. And what do we mean by green tug? It's like a small ship that usually guides the big ships in the narrow horizons. Okay, so those are called tugs, and tugs that runs on alternative fuel are known as green tugs. Okay, so green tugs are actually being established or being placed in most of the major ports in the country. And this is the target for 4 state-owned ports that will procure 2 green tugboats each. So we will see where are those ports. So the first one is Navi Mumbai, which is Jawaharlal Nehru Port. Then it is Kandla Port, okay, also known as Deen Dayal Upadhyaya Port. Then Tuticorin Port, and then Paradip Port. Okay. So these 4 ports have been dedicated or mandated to procure 2 green tugboats each. So total exactly 8 green tugboats will be there. And Deen Dayal Upadhyaya Port, which is Kandla Port, and VO Chidambaram Port, which is Tuticorin Port, they will be developed as green hydrogen hubs. So in this green shipping project of Ministry of Shipping, so the first tugs program is there, green hydrogen hubs program is there, okay, and then the third thing is 30% financing by the center. Okay, so these 3 things you need to learn under this green shipping project. So in recently we are discussing about Ministry of Shipping actually achieving or overcrossed the target of what program? Which program of central government the Ministry of Shipping has actually crossed the target? Can anybody tell? This we've discussed in the May series only. Yes, Vishnu, monetization is the right answer. So under National Monetization Plan, Ministry of Shipping, Ministry of, which 2 ministries else were there that have crossed the NMP target? Ministry of Mines, yes, and one more ministry. Ministry of Coal. Well done. Well done, people. Your preparation is going fine. Okay. So next is Multi Commodity Exchange of India actually reported quarterly profit falling to 85%. Okay, and this is in absolute terms is 5.45 crores. Okay, nothing much more major is there, just a random figure. Just learn about this, how much percentage it has fallen. Next thing is about Digital India Bill. So Digital India Bill will actually encompass within itself various digital practices, be it of internet and be it of various financial transactions. Okay, so the major themes with respect to this news is actually about making the internet safer for children. So this will be done by age gating. So what do we mean by age gating? That actually based on the age, suppose 18 years, most websites will be closed or gate or some restriction will be placed, okay, with respect to age, so that children can be protected from harmful contents. Okay, so there will be rules on content monetization as well as revenue sharing. Okay, various algorithmic transparency and periodic risk assessment will also be there in order to ensure security of financial or cyber systems in India. Okay, and even it says discretionary moderation of fake news on social media. Why discretionary? Because we never know until or unless we know the source, we can't actually say that it is fake news or real news. So at least we have to provide some basic mechanism in order to make sure that it can be fake news. Okay. So that was a theoretical aspect. Once that Digital India Bill will come in the Parliament, then we will see what actually are the provisions with respect to it. Okay. So next thing is Gati Shakti. So government is actually looking to develop local areas via National Master Plan. So initially, what actually the methodology of development was time-bound implementation of mostly central government level infrastructure projects. So center was actually focusing on its own projects and within the time-bound manner. Okay, but right now what the government is actually looking is to adopt a criteria based on region. So we will converge, the center says, the whole developmental projects in order to develop a particular region, and this, be it of central government projects, be it of state government projects, we will actually collaborate and develop the region based. Okay, so this is the methodology change under PM Gati Shakti. And Gati Shakti, you all know, it's a digital platform that brings together various ministries that are related to the development of infrastructure projects within country in order to increase efficiency and reduce various bottlenecks with respect to infrastructure development. Can anybody tell what was the year under which this scheme was launched? Year and month. No, incorrect, not 2019. It's after pandemic. Yes, 2021. Okay, October 2021. So remember these key So while preparing your schemes, do prepare these 3 schemes with the latest data, okay, and what are the latest methodologies, even though what mostly we will cover in the current affairs, but you also prepare them for the phase 2 examination, okay, national monetization, national infrastructure and PM Gati Shakti. So it actually talks about India, Australia working on comprehensive economic cooperation agreement. Okay, so this is a advanced version of economic cooperation agreement between both countries upon which they are actually working. So this has not been finalized. Okay, so right now what these countries actually have is economic cooperation and trade agreement. Okay, so they want this cooperation to become more comprehensive and include much more aspects within the relationship apart from the economic and trade angle. Okay, so in this news there are some peculiar things that we must know. That it says that when Prime Minister went to Australia, it addresses 21,000 members of Indian diaspora in Kudos Bank Arena in Sydney. Okay, so this can come as a GA question in RBI phase 1. And next thing, at there he talked about 3 C's, 3 E's, which are Commonwealth, Cricket, Curry, Energy, Economy, Education, and 3 D's also, Democracy, Diaspora, and Dosti. So make sure that you learn or remember these things, because we never know in GA what type of questions can come, and since it is related to the Prime Minister visit to Australia, it becomes important. Okay, and this data says that Australia was the 13th largest trading partner of India in financial year 22-23. Okay, now tell me the first trading partner, 5th trading partner of financial year 23. Also tell me the 3rd exporting destinations. Yes, you all are correct. Well done. Yes, well done. So next news is about India's growth at risk due to reform policy barriers, says by Moody's Investor Service. I don't want to comment on it, but let's just stick to the news itself, which says that India will face various potential risk because of the reform and policy barriers. And nothing is in there. It's just a pessimistic view on Indian economy, and the basis of which I don't know what is, because India actually is reaffirmed by various international organizations that it will grow a lot in this financial year, and this news you can relate as totally pessimistic view. It says that limited economic liberalization and slower policy implementation pose threats to the country's investment landscape. Although the basis of these things, I don't know from where they have taken, because right now the country is actually liberalizing a lot. Various sectors have been opened by the government, and slower policy is totally wrong, because we are actually using various type of different methodologies in order to increase policy implementation. So you can just say or just remember that Moody's perspective was pessimistic towards the Indian economy. Okay. So next thing is about Central Board of Direct Taxes actually streamlining rules in order to tax winnings from various mobile applications. So applications, as you know, various sports betting mobile applications like Dream 11 and My 11 Circles, something like that, various applications have emerged upon which various prize money such as 2 crores, 1 crores have been there. So in order to tax these earnings or tax these winnings, the Central Board for Direct Taxes has imposed a 30% income tax. Okay, so just remember this 30% income tax, and this is the methodology by which they actually get to know what is the earning. And this is a very basic, simple mathematical issue, that obviously the withdrawal, the amount withdrawn plus closing balance minus amount deposited plus opening balance. Okay, so this is the formula if you want to remember it. Otherwise this is of no use. Just remember this: 30% income tax actually on the winnings of various mobile applications. Okay, next news is about LIC's financial year 23 profit. This becomes important from the perspective of IRDAI phase 2 examination. Okay, so did anyone give yesterday's paper? Nobody gave IRDA exam. Okay, so LIC's financial year 23 profit actually jumps 9 times to 36,397 crores. Okay, so everybody is focused on RBI only. Good. And prepare at least 3 months of current affairs, because actually IBPS is not going beyond 3 months. Okay, so prepare accordingly. So the month of June, May and April becomes critical for the RBI examination. Okay, so LIC reported a 466% year-on-year growth. So this is about the quarter 4 only. Okay, that is January to March period. But the whole financial year 23, it actually posted 36,397 crores. In previous year, which was only 4,000 crores. So as you can see, it is a 9-time jump this year. Okay. So in the annual board meeting, the LIC declared 3 rupees dividend. Okay, for all its shareholders. Next is about India to be major hydrogen hub exporter in 15 years, said by the minister, the central minister. Okay, so he says that India will be a major green hydrogen hub. This we've already discussed, that which 2 ports were actually designated to be developed as major green hydrogen hubs. Recently we've just discussed. Kandla and Tuticorin. Yes, good. So implementing, so while using alternative fuels, okay, the minister says, or this we've discussed in the last discussion also, that implementing 1% sustainable aviation fuel in all domestic flights by 2030 would require 140 million liters of ethanol. Okay, so this is while we are talking about only 1% blending. And did you see that which airline actually run the first commercial flight on sustainable aviation fuel? Okay, now let's move on to the next thing, which is aim to cut logistics cost to 9% of GDP. So the minister, central minister, is actually trying to bring down the logistics cost to 9%. Right now it is 14%, 14 to 16%, and this is actually making our export less trade competitive. Okay, so in order to make our export much more competitive, the minister is actually trying to bring down logistics cost to 9%. Okay, so that means reducing it by at least 5 to 7%. Okay, 5 to 7% reduction is essential, and for this recently the central government has rolled out a national logistics policy. Okay, next news is about India signs Migration Mobility Pact with Australia. So Migration Mobility Pact is all about a standard procedure through which various people, be it students, be it actually workers, be it other people, can actually move across each other country through a standard procedure. Okay, so this deal makes it easier for students, academics and professionals to live, study and work in each other's countries. So this deal was signed when Prime Minister actually went over there in Australia, and this actually, he says that it will promote exchange of students, graduates, researchers, business people, expand P2P ties and enhance cooperation. Australia, you all know, is a member country of Quad. Okay, and what is the flagship military exercise associated with Quad? Malabar exercise. Yes, right. Okay, so income tax relief for leave encashment on retirement at rupees 25 lakhs. Okay, so while we are actually working, so we usually have accumulated various earned leaves. Okay, because of various reasons we didn't use those leaves. So while retirement, suppose if we have lot of leaves, and if the leaves when encashed is around 24 lakhs, so they will not be taxable because the limit has been set to 25 lakhs. So this is all about the budget announcement this year. So you can remember this figure. This can come directly as a one-liner in the RBI examination, that post retirement the leave cash tax exemption limit has been increased to 25 lakhs. Okay. As you can see, it was initially 3 lakhs in 2002. But now it has been increased to 25 lakhs. So the Renewable Energy Minister actually says that 65% of energy capacity to come from renewables by 2030. So 2030 is a very crucial year with respect to renewable energy, because in various news and various policies and various government policies actually talk about promoting EV and establishing an EV ecosystem by 2030. Okay, so right now actually we have missed the target of setting up 175 gigawatt of domestic renewable energy capacity by 2022. However, the minister says that we will achieve 65% of the capacity by 2022. So these are just, next news is about just estimates with respect to wheat production. So there are various advanced estimates. So this is about third advanced estimate of wheat production, and it is around 112.74 million tons. So these things become important from the perspective of NABARD examination, because one liner with respect to these things directly come in the phase 1 examination. Okay. So just remember the key figure and by which advanced estimate this figure is arrived. Next news is about WTO dispute on ICT tariff, that since India actually launched a production linked incentive scheme for manufacturing mobile phones in India and to develop electronics manufacturing in India, India actually imposed various tariffs over imports from countries like Taiwan and Japan. Okay. So because of which these countries actually went to WTO and appeal and actually asked for India to remove those tariffs, and even the WTO body ruled against India. So they asked India to remove those tariffs, but India went to appellate body of WTO, and since this appellate body is dysfunctional because of the quorum, right now limited number of judges are there and that is below the quorum, and the US is actually blocking the appointment of judges. Okay, so appeal into this dysfunctional body actually provides relaxation to the Indian domestic electronics manufacturing industry. Okay, because nothing can be done about it until the appeal body can move or give any rulings. Okay. Next thing is about investor education. Protection Fund Authority reaches out to firms to ease investor claim processes. So they are actually saying they have top 100 firms. Okay, and they are actually developing the regional Seva Kendra in order to disburse or share unclaimed stocks of various companies. The largest, they say, belongs to the Reliance Group, that various stakeholders or various stock owners of Reliance Group or various stocks of Reliance Group are still unclaimed. This is another news which talks about that corporate adoption of NPS at 5-year high. Okay, so people are actually adopting national pension scheme with around 200,000 new subscriptions, which is a 5-year high. So can anybody tell when was NPS open for corporate employees? Corporate and their employees. What was the year when it was open for this category? When was it open for all citizens? Tell me the year for all citizens too. So check these key years, okay? These are very important. Next news is about Kerala first became fully e-governed state. Kerala is the first state to become fully e-governed. So it was also the first fully literate state. Okay, and recently it has become India's first total e-governed state. That means all the various policies and schemes that the Kerala government has launched would be digitized, transparent and fast. Okay. Next is about India takes lead in clean energy, and this is actually told by International Energy Agency. It talks about that of the projected 2.8 trillion global energy investment, 1.7 trillion is expected to be allocated to clean energy. Okay. This is not specific to India, this is the global energy investment. Okay, but they are actually praising India's efforts for emerging as a global leader in clean energy. So learn these figures accordingly. Next thing is about Mukesh Ambani, named as COP28 Advisory Committee member. So COP28 is going to be held in UAE. This was one of the question in IRDA exam. Okay. So learn these things and remember these key figures also, because in IRDA exam they asked about brand ambassador for Gucci, who was Alia Bhatt. Okay. So these questions with related to the figures, important personalities becomes important from the perspective of examination. So COP28, yes Rishabh, you are right. Okay, so prepare these personalities also. Okay, so this will be held in UAE and Mukesh Ambani Advisory Committee member. Next news is about World Economic Forum chief talking about India witnessing robust growth in financial year 24, and he is also saying that in financial year 24 India will actually see snowball effect, and snowball effect by which we mean that with higher economic growth we will see higher employment, we will see higher development. Okay, and that in turns increase higher economic growth. Okay, so this is a snowball effect, like a snow which after moving becomes increased in size. Okay, and although it was written over there, remember the chief name. What was the chief name of WEF? It is Jorge Brende. Okay, World Economic Forum president. World Bank president, you all know. Banga, yes. So next news is about Goldman Sachs. Okay, it's a merchant bank which actually raises growth forecast of India by 30 basis points. So here the two things are calendar year and financial year. Does anybody knows the difference, that from which month to which month is the calendar year, from which month to which month is financial year? If you know, then mention in the comments, then I'll tell. So for calendar year 23, it has increased the growth forecast to 6.3%. Rishabh is correct with respect to calendar year. It is Jan to December. For financial year, it is April to March. Okay. So for the calendar year 23, the growth forecast is 6.3. Okay. For calendar year 24, the growth forecast is similar. However, the Goldman Sachs also released the growth forecast for financial year 23 as well as 24, which is 6.9% and 6.4% for 24. Okay. Next news is about government to earn record dividend of 13,800 crore from public sector banks in financial year 23. Since we've already discussed about the news that public sector banks this year crossed what was the amount of profit that public sector banks actually crossed. Recently we've discussed. Perfect. 1 trillion rupees. Okay. So similarly, if public sector banks have crossed this much amount of profit, then obviously the dividend will be given to the government. So the government received 13,800 crores from listed public sector companies. Okay, and this is 50% higher than last year, which was 210 crores. Okay. Next thing is about IPEF, which is Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, and it was started by which country? US, yes. So it was started by United States to strengthen economic cooperation in Indo-Pacific region. Okay. How many members are there? Yes. So these are the membership list. Okay. Go through that. Apart from India, US, 12 other members belonging to Southeast Asia as well as East Asia. Okay. And how many pillars are there? How many and what pillars are there? Can anybody name those 4 pillars? Trade, supply chain, clean economy, fair economy. Okay, and India is not negotiating the trade pillar while it is being a member in all 3 else. Well done. Okay. So the news is actually about substantially wrapping up of supply chain deal by the Indo-Pacific Economic Forum. Okay. So at least supply chain pillar is sorted, whereas fair economy, clean economy and the trade pillar continues to remain under negotiation. Okay. Next is about Bank of Maharashtra being the top performer in NPA management during financial year 23. And we've already discussed about Bank of Maharashtra registering the highest profit in financial year 23. Does anybody remember what was the profit figure? How much percentage? Not exactly absolute figure, but the percentage figure. How much percentage higher was the profit? Yes. Well done. Okay, so similarly in terms of NPA also, it was 0.25% only. Okay. The provision coverage ratio is 98.28% and the capital adequacy ratio is the highest of 18.14%. So remember these key figures: capital adequacy ratio, provisioning coverage ratio, NPA as well as the profit of Bank of Maharashtra because it actually performed very good. This is a general news about FPIs. It actually continuously, it is very dynamic in nature, so don't give too much importance to it. Just understand that FPIs are actually showing interest again in the Indian stock markets. Next is about Uber and government e-marketplace deal. So Uber is actually trying to provide its service on government e-marketplace where members of the government can actually hire Uber with zero cancellation charges and no surge pricing. Okay. So for official, Uber will be providing services through government e-marketplace portal. This is about G20 nations actually deciding to have a singular definition of startups in order to enhance interoperability. Next news is about Vivad Se Vishwas scheme to settle disputes in government contracts. So this is specifically for government contracts. Okay. It will start from July 15 till October 31 and this is announced in 24 financial year budget, also known as Vivad Se Vishwas Part 2 contractual disputes. Okay, so these figures becomes important. Next is about foreign direct investment equity inflow. It actually falls 22% to 46 billion. 22% decline and the absolute figure is $46 billion. Singapore remains the biggest investor in India and investment is $17.2 billion. Okay, so this is all about foreign direct investment. So in terms of percentage wise, can anybody tell the difference between FDI and FPI? Yes, correct. Okay, 10%. Next news is about India reclaiming 5th spot amongst the world equity markets. Okay, so currently India's market capitalization is 3.4 trillion. Okay, and we are the 5th in spot with respect to world equity markets. Okay, even in terms of economy size also we are 5th. Okay. Next is about urban unemployment drops to 6.8% in March quarter. So this is given by the periodic labor force survey released by NSO. Okay. Next news is about solar capacity additions fall 48%. So this is in January to March period, only 1.9 gigawatt of solar energy capacity we could add, and this is very low compared to last same period where we added 3.6 gigawatt. So right now situation under renewable energy is not good. Okay. And right now India's cumulative installed solar capacity stands at 64.5 gigawatt. Okay. Again FAME, which says deadline nearing, and deadline is financial year 24 is the deadline of FAME 2. And still we've already only sponsored 41% of the target. Okay. Okay. The target was more than 1.5 million electronic vehicles. And we could only provide 647,000. So this is what the data says. Okay. Next is about Association of Mutual Funds in India, a body which is guided by SEBI, is actually asking AMFIs to form an ethics committee in order to reduce misconduct in asset management companies. So usually what happens is within these asset managed companies, the expense ratio change is very arbitrary in nature. So without customers or without subscribers news, the asset management companies does change expense ratio, which reduces subscribers returns. Okay. Next thing is firms not meeting target to suffer incentive loss. So government is actually saying, although we are providing you incentives with respect to incremental sales, but if you fail to achieve those targets, we will reduce the subsidy amount or we will reduce the incentive amount. Okay, so this is all about the new threshold. Okay, so under IT hardware, up to 9% incentive is being provided based on incremental scales. Okay, and the new threshold is being devised by the government, which says that minimum investment to receive the benefits under global companies is 500 crores, hybrid companies, global domestic venture is 250 crores. Okay, so remember these key figures also. Next is generic news. India extends $1 billion credit line to Sri Lanka for another year. Okay, and this is signed between State Bank of India. So State Bank of India is actually providing $1 billion credit facility through State Bank of India. It is actually being done. Okay, so remember the key bank name. Next news is about participatory notes investment at 4-month high. So let's just understand a bit about participatory notes. Okay. So P notes are issued by a registered foreign portfolio investor. Okay. And overseas investor that wants to invest in Indian stocks but without registering with SEBI or any other intermediaries, they can use the facility of P notes. Okay, so through P notes they can invest in Indian stocks like Tata Motors, Maruti Suzuki and various other stocks. Okay, so this is all about participatory notes. So this is just a dynamic news which says that participatory notes investment is at 4-month high, similar to FPI's inclination to Indian stock market. Okay. Next news is about General Insurance Company. Q4 profit jumps 43% to 1,564 crores. So this is basically a generic news that 43% rise is accounted by the General Insurance Company. Okay, this is the gross premium and it recorded a 3-fold rise in net profit. So these figures becomes important for those people who are actually preparing for IRDAI phase 2 examination. Okay. Next news is about Center setups panel to monitor cheetah project, because right now the cheetah that have been relocated from Africa to India, 6 cheetah have died. That includes 3 newborn cubs. So this committee is actually trying to monitor the development of cheetahs. So this committee is a 11-member committee headed by Rajesh Gopal. Okay. This is April macro data by monthly economic review of Finance Ministry, which is just broad data, nothing specific figure in it. Okay, let's go to the regulatory body news. This is about SEBI actually trying to seeking measure to curb price volatility in derivative segment. So how does SEBI actually trying to do that? Okay, so SEBI is trying to incorporate price bands. Okay, so what do we mean by that? Let's see. So whenever a stock is traded on a stock platform, okay, so suppose the price is 500 and usually the price band to avoid high volatility within the stock is 550, 450. So whenever, because recently in Ambani case, sorry, not in Ambani, Adani case, Adani stocks because of the Hindenburg report actually crashed a lot. So they started going down to the lower circuit level where the trading stopped. Okay, and then after 1 hour it also crossed to another lower circuit. So these things are price bands that have been placed in order to reduce the volatility so that stock cannot go to crash at all new levels. Okay, so SEBI will provide a price band upon which the stock, if it achieves the lower state, it will stop trading. Okay, so similar thing will be applicable to derivative segment also. So SEBI is actually thinking about it, not actually applied, so thinking about it. Okay. Next thing is about conference for the directors. This is, we've all actually listening to that RBI with board of directors of various banks is actually trying to have a meeting, which is governance in banks, driving sustainable growth and stability. Just remember this key theme upon which this board meeting is being done, driving sustainable growth and stability. This is important from this news. The rest is very generic in nature. Okay. This news is about market regulator. SEBI pushes for anti-avoidance provision. So anti-avoidance provision is with respect to tax avoidance. And tax avoidance we mean not tax evasion. Tax evasion is different. That means you are doing something illegal. Tax avoidance is properly legal, where people use various exemptions or find loopholes within the income tax law in order to avoid paying taxes. So one law is, in stock market net profit is being taxed. Okay, so if your profit is more than 1 lakh, you will be taxed. But if you report loss of around 10,000 and your net profit becomes 90,000, then obviously you won't be taxed. So such rules and regulations people use to avoid tax, and SEBI is actually trying to include some provisions, strict provisions, so that people don't use these rules in order to avoid payment of taxes. Okay. Next thing is impact of withdrawal of rupees 2000 notes is going to be very marginal, said by RBI. Okay. What is the last date upon which the 2000 note rupees are being accepted? Yes, correct, September 30. Okay, so why the RBI is actually saying that impact will be very minimal? Because in circulation 2000 rupees only constituted 10.8%, and in various surveys of Reserve Bank of India 2000 rupees are not used while doing economic exchange. Okay, that's why it is saying that the withdrawal impact will be very minimal. Next news is about SEBI to strengthen grievance handling. So SEBI's grievance handling system is SCORES. Can anybody tell what's the full form of SCORES? Full form of SCORES, anyone? Yes, Isha is correct. Vishnu is correct. SEBI complaints redress system. Okay, so remember these static things also. These things become important because these are the important things that we usually miss out. Okay. So only normal things are there that they will provide end-to-end solutions by reducing timelines and will make the process more efficient. Okay, and they will also establish a separate portal for market intelligence that will cater to market price manipulation, insider trading and accounting manipulation complaints. Okay. So in consultation paper of SEBI, this is not actually implemented, so don't give too much importance to it, but SEBI is actually trying to exclude market intelligence portal from the SCORES portal that will cater only to the problems related to insider trading and market manipulation. Okay. Next thing is about settlement guarantee fund corpus, where regulator tweaks methodology for core settlement guarantee funds. So these funds are usually being established by various stock exchanges such as NSE and BSE in order to settle the trades, especially in the derivative segment. Okay, so just have a basic understanding related to this. Okay, nothing much into depth needs to be understood from the perspective of examination. So this is Reserve Bank of India's actually talks about, Governor talked about in his statement that growth is likely to be 6.5% in financial year 24. Reserve Bank of India Governor says. So in his lecture he is actually talking about these things. He is also talking about retail inflation, that although CPI is 4.7% in April, what about WPI? In the last lecture we discussed Yes, Rishabh is right, because in April we've entered negative territory with respect to wholesale price index. So it was around 0.92 or 0.98, just check it. Okay. Next is about amendment to the master direction on KYC instructions on wire transfers. This we discussed in the previous discussions also, that with respect to transactions, in order to avoid money laundering as well as Prevention of Terrorism Act, to comply with these things, and FATF, recently RBI has amended the KYC provisions. So FATF, is India a member or not? Yes, India is a member. Okay. So this just includes that while doing a wire transfer, the name of the originator should be there, account number and originator's address, national identity number should be there. Suppose if someone is sending money from US, social security number of US or identity number of that US personnel should be there, and the beneficiary's account number, okay, that should be there. So these are the basic things that are mentioned in this circular. Next is about IRDAI to create state insurance plan mirroring the state level bankers committee. Okay, you all know state level bankers committee have been established in order to provide a platform where government plus banks can cooperate in order to develop banking system within the region or within the state. So similarly, IRDA is actually trying to create state insurance plan where government and insurance companies can sit together in order to expand insurance penetration and insurance density within the region. Okay, and that's why, and the main objective behind doing this is to achieve insurance for all by 2047. Okay. So IRDA is actually trying to launch a innovation which is almost like UPI, like movement for insurance sector. So a conceptual framework has been developed, which is being proposed through Bima Trinity, which is Bima Sugam, Bima Vistar and women centric Bima Vahak. Please do remember this in order to, this becomes very critical for IRDA examination phase 2. They are asking things like these only, that what does Bima Trinity comprise? Bima Sugam, Bima Vahak and Bima Vistar. Okay. Next news is about SEBI forms advisory panel on market intermediaries. So what do we mean by market intermediaries? So there are two types of market, primary market and secondary market. Okay. So these market intermediaries actually facilitates the market exchange. So in secondary market, brokers are market intermediaries, brokers like Zerodha, Grow, Upstocks, okay. And in primary market, which is a market where initial issues are being done, so merchant bankers, underwriters and portfolio managers are the market intermediaries. Okay. So this is all about market intermediaries, and SEBI actually forms an advisory committee on increased transparency and increased functioning with respect to market intermediaries. So it is asking the new committee to check on changes in the legal framework and how to increase transparency in the functioning of market intermediaries. So for this, they have actually established a committee chaired by Executive Director S. Ravindran, okay, and these members that are famous executives of National Stock Exchange and Bombay Stock Exchange are also the members of it. Ashish Chauhan and Sundar Raman Ramamurthy. Okay. So remember this. And this committee is of 21 members. Next news is about SEBI saying shortlist high performers, then go for a low cost fund. That while shortlisting a mutual funds, okay, then see that which fund has actually gives CAGR of more than 15%, which is usually higher than the Nifty, what Nifty gives, and then see the expense ratio, and expense ratio should be on the lower end, that means around 0.58 to 1%, and not more than that, because then it will obviously reduce the returns. So this is all is in the circular of SEBI. Next is about governance in banks driving sustainable growth and stability. This we've already discussed. Okay. Next is about RBI's annual report. This we'll see in detail. Okay. So it says that growth momentum to hold amid easing inflation. Okay. So growth momentum will be there because of inflation that has been reducing. So this is the average inflation in financial year 23 consumer price index, and this that the Reserve Bank of India says will moderate in the current financial year. Already we know in April it turned to 4.7, and that's why even in the recent monetary policy committee in June, the Reserve Bank of India kept the repo rate 6.5%, which is unchanged. Okay. And the Reserve Bank of India noted that risks are decreasing, but who knows the recent Russian civil war, how it will unfold. Okay, that is need to be seen, but this is not accounted by Reserve Bank of India because this news actually came after the report. Okay. In total, Reserve Bank of India increased repo rate by 250 basis points, which is a lot. Okay. Monetary policy remains focused on withdrawal of accommodation. That means Reserve Bank of India governor says that we are actually not pivoting back to the policy of accommodation. We are actually being neutral with respect to policy rate. And in future, if inflation persists, we can also increase the repo rate. In RBI's consumer confidence survey, RBI noted that people are actually optimistic with respect to the economy in general. Okay. And there is a crowding in effect of the sustained increase in government capital expenditure. Every year the government is actually increasing its capital expenditure. This leads to crowding in of private investments. So crowding in simply means increased government expenditure, increases economic growth in the economy, which actually provide attractive investment opportunities for private investors, and therefore they also put their money into the economy also. This in turn leads to higher economic growth. This you can say as the snowballing effect as well as the virtuous cycle of growth. Okay. Next thing is about FDI slowed during financial year 23 to 28 billion as compared to last year. This we have discussed in the previous news. Okay. The rising cost of borrowing in 2023 rendered external commercial borrowings unattractive, because as you all know, because of the high interest rate hike by Federal Reserve makes the external commercial borrowings much more costly to the Indian investments. Okay. And in financial year 23, the RBI annual report actually says that India would grow 7.7%. Okay, this is for financial year 23. Next news is about RBI's balance sheet that actually grow and forex operations lift income by 47%. Okay, so size of the RBI increased 2.5% year on year, and this is the total size, 63.4 trillion during financial year 23. Okay, income rose by 47%, and this is mostly due to the forex operations. And what are other things that are important? That expenditure also went up by 14%, up to 1.48 trillion. Okay. Other thing being provision of 1.3 trillion added to contingency buffer. So contingency fund, you all know that whenever Indian rupee depreciates, money under contingency fund is used to maintain its sanctity. Okay. Next thing about contingency risk buffer stands at 6%, and it has been up from 5.5%, signifying the strong, healthy balance sheet of Reserve Bank of India. Okay. Increase on the asset side is foreign investments, gold, and loans and advances. Okay. It says in RBI's assets, domestic assets are less, only 27.5%. However, foreign currency assets and gold are on the higher note, that rose to 72.31%. Okay. So RBI's balance sheet is highly comprised of foreign currency assets and gold. Next is about value of bank fraud nearly halves. So value of bank frauds actually reduced by half, but the number of frauds actually rose. So these frauds are associated with various mobile frauds related to phishing and various loan portfolios. Okay. Next is about no 2000 rupees e-rupees is in circulation. Central bank digital currency is actually going on pilot basis, and only these denomination of CBDC is right now in circulation. Okay. The total amount of circulation of CBDC is 16.39 crores. Okay. And the 500 denomination of CBDC is amongst the highest share in retail segment. Similarly, issuance of certificates of deposits, it's a short-term borrowing instrument used by banks, okay, that have a tenure of less than 1 year. So actually their issuance is right now jumping threefold in financial year 23. Okay, so the absolute figure is 6.73 trillion, and this is more than the last year where it was only 2.33 trillion. This we already know that crude imports from Russia is actually jumping, making it the 5th largest partner, and Russia became the largest exporter of oil for India in terms of value as well as volume. Okay, and this is about financial year 23. In terms of value as well as volume, Russia is highest net exporter to India. So the last news is about SEBI actually making rules about investor protection funds. Investor funds. So there are two types of funds. So the first one is, it is actually saying that all stock exchanges and depositories will have to establish an investor protection fund, and this will be administered through a separate trust created for the purpose. So this is the SEBI ruling, nothing much more specific in this. And the IPF trust of the stock exchange shall consist of 5 trustees. Okay, so this becomes important. 5 trustees, and what are these trustees? 3 public interest directors, 1 representative from investor association, and 1 chief regulator officer or compliance officer. Maximum tenure is 5 years. So that can be easier to remember. 5 trustee, 5-year tenure. So in this way, we've completed May portion of current affairs. Only some portion of May part 1 will be there that we will discuss before starting June. Okay. So if anything is there, you can ask. Otherwise, we'll wrap up this session. So thank you so much for joining. Okay, we'll meet in the next session.